Two words you got to know: assemblage and plottage. Assemblage is a process of joining two or more contiguous parcels together to come up with a larger and perhaps more desirable parcel. Assemblage means you just put it all together. Plottage means you put it all together and it's worth more than its component prices or parts. So if you had three properties you put together and you paid $10,000, $10,000, and $15,000, you're looking at a $35,000 package. If you put it all together and it's now worth $25,000, well, that was an assemblage, but it wasn't a plottage. But if you put it all together and it's now worth $50,000, well, that was a plottage. P in plottage stands for profit. The size and shape of property can affect the value as well. If you have a commercial parcel and it's twice as deep as the other properties on that, let's say, main street that all these commercial parcels are on, and you're looking for a fast food operation to come in, like a Wendy's or an Arby's or a McDonald's, they only need a property so deep in order to make their operation work. In fact, there are reports that are generated that you can find out exactly what the different fast food vendors are looking for as far as size and shape of lots. Well, you have one that it has the right amount of frontage, but it's twice as deep as they need. Are they going to be willing to pay more for that just because it's twice as deep? Probably not. It probably won't work. And so what happens is properties that have excess depth or excess width but don't have the depth may suffer in value. So size and shape can affect, and then there's a term that's always on the exam, a term called situs. Situs is kind of a derivative of the word site. It means location. And you know that old rule of real estate. The three most important things contributing to value are location, location, location. And where that property is located is going to have a significant impact on the value. That's the concept of situs. There are three approaches to value. They are the market data or comparison approach, the cost approach, or the income or capitalization approach. So market data, cost, and income. Every appraisal report has all three approaches to value in it. Now, there are some types of properties that lend themselves to one approach better than another. For example, service properties, like properties for schools or churches or government buildings. Really, the income approach doesn't affect them that much. But when an appraiser is doing an appraisal on a service-type property, something that's going to be used for a school, a church, or a government building, they're going to have a comment on the income approach, even though these buildings typically don't really have much influence by that particular approach to value. But all appraisals must have all three approaches to value in it. Obviously, the income properties like apartments or perhaps retail-type buildings or maybe even medical buildings, how much profit they generate to the owners or the income for that building is going to have the most weight in determining what the value of that property is. The market data, cost, and income approach will be considered on that type of property as well. It's just that they're going to weigh the income approach a little more heavily when they come up with their final reconciliation of value. And of course, non-investment properties that have no cash flow, such as homes or vacant lots. What's most important that may indicate their value is the market data approach. What are comparable properties selling for? Let's talk a little bit more in depth about these three approaches to value. The market data approach has a formula. The formula is comparables plus or minus adjustments equals appraised value. When you're doing the market data approach, you go out and find similar properties to the subject property, and then you make plus or minus adjustments on those properties, and that gives you an indication of value. So the first step in the market data approach is finding the comparables. And this is one step that's going to be very important to you from a practical sense. If you can find more recent, better comparables, you're going to have a much easier time convincing an appraiser that this property is worth X number of dollars, or the price that you sold it for. But once you find those comparables, you have to adjust them. You're adjusting them so they look like the subject property. You never adjust the subject. You only adjust the comparables. If the subject property has a 3-car garage, but the comparable only has a 2-car garage, then you have to make a plus adjustment. In other words, you have to make the comparable look like the subject. You have to add that 3rd-car garage to it. If the comparable is better than the subject property, maybe it's a little bit larger, you're going to have to do a negative adjustment to make that comparable more like the subject property and bring it into line and size.